It's August 2nd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with continued extreme heat waves here in the country. The blistering heat has pushed the government to raise the heat wave alert level to serious for the first time in 4 years. Most regions in South Korea will see up to 35 degrees Celsius again today. The 25th World Scout Jamboree is underway here in South Korea's Saemangeum, with the opening ceremony set to be staged tonight. Credit rating agency Fitch downgraded the United States' long-term foreign currency issuer default rating from a AAA score to AA+. Expected fiscal deterioration, a growing debt burden, and governance erosion were the reasons cited. It was another tropical night here in South Korea. So hot that the government has activated the first stage operation of its disaster countermeasure headquarters and raised its heat wave alert level to the highest level, serious. Our Lee Si-hoo starts us off.
South Korea's Ministry of the Interior and Safety activated the first stage operation of its Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure headquarters on Tuesday evening. It also raised its heat wave alert level to serious, the highest level above attention, caution, and alert for the first time since 2019. The level serious is issued when the highest feels-like temperature of the day is forecast to reach 35 degrees Celsius for 3 days or more in over 40% of nationwide weather report districts, or when the temperature is expected to hit 38 degrees Celsius in 10% of the weather districts. Previously, the level alert had been issued on July 1st. The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters has ordered related ministries and regional administrations to take special care of those who work outdoors, such as farmers or construction workers, as well as the elderly. The headquarters also asked them to come up with measures to prevent damage to fishing and farming industries and manage public infrastructure like roads and railroads. Meanwhile, the nation is experiencing what's called tropical nights with sweltering heat, making it difficult to sleep. Tropical nights are when the lowest temperature overnight is 25 degrees Celsius or above. In the midst of these heat waves without a respite, experts explain that it's important to minimize heat exposure.
It's not just about the absolute temperature, but also about how long for and where you're exposed to the heat. Even at the same temperature, the risk of heat stroke or heat exhaustion cranks up if you're exposed to the heat for a long time or working in a confined, humid environment.
To prevent heat-related illnesses, it's necessary to stay hydrated and be aware of one's own body condition. Dizziness, nausea, and headaches are common symptoms of heat-related illnesses. Move to a cool place if you feel unwell and don't hesitate to reach out for help or see a doctor. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Now, meanwhile, over in China, the country has been battered by Typhoon Doksuri, which left at least 20 dead and 33 missing. Typhoon Kanun also ripped through the island of Japan's Okinawa. Lee Seung-jae tells us more.
Typhoon Doksuri, meaning eagle in Korean, which slammed northern China from Sunday night, has left at least 20 dead and 33 missing in the capital Beijing and the nearby Hebei province. Authorities are calling it one of the strongest storms to hit the region in over a decade, as homes and roads were heavily flooded due to the massive rainfall the typhoon brought. In response, Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for an all-out search and rescue operation aimed at people missing or trapped in floods, while demanding greater efforts to minimize casualties. The Chinese Finance Ministry announced it would allocate $15 million for rescue work in the Beijing-Tianjin-Hebei region. Over in Japan, Typhoon Kanun brought torrential rains and strong wind to the island of Okinawa on Tuesday, which is also home to a number of U.S. military bases. Meteorologists in the U.S. have labeled Typhoon Kanun a Category 4 storm on the 5-category wind scale, while Japanese authorities issued a stern warning to the 760,000 residents in Okinawa to evacuate their homes immediately. However, experts are having a hard time trying to pinpoint where Kanun will hit next.
Because the subtropical high to the north of Kanong is not stable, and there is a tropical convection to the east that is quite active, which will have a certain impact on the path of Kanong in the later stages.
While the typhoon is expected to hit Shanghai, storm path models released by South Korea, the U.S., and experts in Europe all show different predictions. Weather authorities here in South Korea say if Khanun does pass by the Korean peninsula, it should arrive this coming weekend at the earliest or next week at the latest. With Khanun's powerful winds, authorities are keeping a close eye on the storm while making all necessary preparations in case the storm does hit South Korea. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Fitch Ratings on Tuesday downgraded the U.S. long-term credit rating from its previous AAA score to AA+, citing expected fiscal deterioration over the next 3 years. The latest downgrade also comes as the credit rating agency placed the U.S. on negative watch, citing the debt ceiling conflict between lawmakers in the U.S. The debt ceiling feud was mentioned again in the downgrade, saying its review showed a steady deterioration in standards of governance over the last 20 years, including on the fiscal and debt matters. Now, AAA rating is the highest with the lowest expectation of default risk, while AA means a very high credit quality. Now, let's talk about what the latest downgrade means for the U.S. with Professor Oh Jun-seok this morning. Welcome to the program.
Morning.
So, Fitch Ratings on Tuesday downgraded the U.S. credit rating from its previous AAA score to AA+. Now, the reasons they cited were fiscal deterioration, a growing debt burden, and governance erosion. Now, are these valid reasons? What's your take on this?
Considering financial vulnerability, mainly caused by increasing debt burden of the household and project financing construction areas, I could say it could make sense in a way. It is a confirmation of warning sign based on a possibility in the financial market risks. You have to pay more and more mortgages fees out of fixed salaries, and think about it, higher interest rate implies higher discount rate, which means decreasing the project value. When the project value decreased, which is collateralized as a credit, a project loan might be redeemed when certain conditions came to meet. As a result, project might be in a default position. This is why the financial market turns out to be volatile. In this end, increasing debt burden came from consecutive interest rate hikes, which is unavoidable in a way to cover down the inflation. This might be not only the case of the United States, but also most of countries, including Korea, have to be prepared for the risk insulation due to monetary expansion based upon the prolonged COVID-19 pandemic.
Sure, the downgrade, the latest downgrade can be seen as rather a warning sign, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen firmly disagreed with the latest decision. Now, Professor, what's your take on the latest downgrade then? Is it fair?
We have to think about the position of the Fitch IBCA and the Janet Yellen's position. When it comes to the downgrade decision of the Fitch, it might be a warning sign of the financial market under the worst case scenario. As a credit agency, it is the writing, and Fitch analyzed the outlook of the possible financial risks, and they did the credit changes. That is the right decision, I say. But when you see the market and drivers of the economic growth, future of the economic trend, there are normal scenarios and best scenarios as well. That is the Janet Yellen's position. In this sense, I could understand Janet Yellen's remark, and also I agree on her conviction on the economic prospect in the United States with a broader view of the economic cycle. That is because the Fed has done, comparatively speaking, up till now, Fed has the right measures at the right timing in a way to sustain the job position and market cycle during the COVID-19. While controlling the inflationary pressure and not to be messed up with political populism, in this respect, I could vote for Janet Yellen's opinion. And I do believe a risk controllability and policy decision mechanism of the U.S.
Sure, the comments do sound fair from both of the sides. Now, let's turn our attention to the economic situations here in South Korea. The country's trade balance was in the black for the second straight month last month, July, on the back of rising auto exports and also falling raw material prices. Are they really good signs, Professor Oh?
We hope so, but trade trends are changing slowly, but it's just taking a breather. Korea lowered the trade surplus in July, and strong car sales and a drop in oil prices. The challenge is tough, however, and not over yet, because it's a contractionary surplus, not expansionary. I mean, a surplus comes from drops, not expansion of the trade volumes. Import drops by 25.4%, much more than export drop of 16.5%. One makes import drops, simply speaking, in two respects. As for Korean economy, more than half of imports are raw material and energy, simply speaking. You can imagine monsoon and vacation season in July and August. Manufacturing companies and distribution channels had to lower the level of inventory and facilitate operation in advance. And gas import dropped to 51%, followed by crude oil drop of 46%, and even coal plunged by 46% on year. On the other respect, deflating global market has been surrounded by predictable unpredictability. U.S.-China trade tension, not to mention a prolonged Russian-Ukraine crisis. Negative signs on chip export dwindled by 34%. Export for petroleum products were down 42%, petrochemical by 25%, and steel by 10% on year. There are recovering signs as well. Car exports jumped to 15%. Export of general machinery also up 3%, and home appliance by 2.5%. From the global market perspective, this depletion of chip inventory and increasing shipments are optimistic sign for trade. But there are miles to go before we got solution how contractionary surplus should be changed into the expansionary surplus.
Sure, lots of global uncertainties making the outlook a bit hazy still at the moment. Now, we all know China is South Korea's top trading partner, but shipments to China also fell over 25% on year to nearly $10 billion. Now, what's holding back the shipments to China still?
Yes, you got the right point. It's worrying. Korean export is struggling to get out of the bumpy and muddy roads, especially a weak chip sector. A fall in petroleum product and petrochemicals attribute to the weak export, but semiconductor, that is the most point of contention. Country's key export items sank 28% on falling demand and a drop in chip prices. Trade war between China and the U.S. drove chip supply chain into the bottom, which make the Korea in trouble. Biden administration has set export control on some of their products to restrict China's ability to make cutting-edge chips. Three big U.S. makers of chip machinery, KLA, Lam, and Applied Materials, are facing headwind in China also. Recently, though it might be a wish list, Korea's SK Hynix, the world's second biggest memory chip maker, said in an outlook, it shows early sign of chip sector beginning to recover from a deep downturn amid robust demand for artificial intelligence capacity, with rising interest in OpenAI's ChatGPT, seen as the main drivers of the demand. Check neutral and professional report. According to Gartner forecast, global semiconductor revenue is projected to fall 11 points this year, but the industry remains optimistic starting from next year that sales will bounce back in the longer term. Chip makers such as Intel Corporation are projecting that the market will double to $1 trillion in annual sales by 2030.
All right, Professor Oh Jun-seok, thank you so much for a thorough analysis this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Now, moving on, South Korea last year saw the third biggest drop in economic output per person among major countries. According to a Korean lawmaker's analysis of data from OECD and World Bank, South Korea's GDP per capita, a core indicator of economic performance in 2022, dropped 8.2% to $32,142. Now, the only major countries to see a larger decline were Japan and Sweden. The Bank of Korea largely attributed the drop to the Korean won weakening by 12.9% against the US dollar. South Korea is ranked at 23rd in terms of GDP per capita among the 47 countries in the data, unchanged from the year before. Teens from all around the world have built these tents as their new homes for the next 11 days, where they'll cook and mingle with one another. The so-called Culture Olympics for teens is now in full swing here in South Korea. Our Choi Soo-hyung is there.
The World Scout Jamboree, the biggest camping festival for young people, began on Tuesday at Saemangeum, Buan-gun County in South Korea's Jeollabuk-do province. Around 43,000 young people from 158 countries will come together, fostering friendships that bridge racial, religious, and cultural divides. This event returns to Korea after 32 years after the country hosted the 1991 edition in Gangwon-do province. But after 6 years of preparation, the venue finally opened with great anticipation.
The World Scout Federation highly praised the successful hosting of the 25th World Jamboree as planned. Additionally, this Saemangeum World Jamboree offers a variety of exciting and memorable programs for young people so that they will cherish their time in South Korea.
Participants from around the world arrived on Tuesday before the official program activities started on Wednesday. They spent the day preparing, including handling the registration process and setting up their tents from morning to late evening. Scouts worldwide are greeted at this welcome center and then moved to their assigned accommodation after registration. Despite the long journey to Korea and the scorching heat that left many exhausted, the excitement and joy of meeting new friends, not to mention the anticipation of the 12-day event, were clear to see.
Well, I mostly expect to meet new people, meet internationally new people, get a new network.
Get a lot of new friends from all around the world and experience lots of new stuff here.
Due to Korea's intense summer monsoon flooding the Saemangeum reclamation site until just before the opening, the Scouts managed to create their accommodation by laying plastic pallets and pitching their tents on top. However, despite the extreme weather conditions, the Scouts cherished their camping experience and found joy in preparing for the upcoming programs. The World Scout Federation highlighted how Scout activities help young people overcome difficulties, develop social skills, and be physically healthy. Despite post-pandemic challenges, the Scouts' enthusiasm for the Jamboree in Korea remains undiminished. The opening ceremony will take place at 8 p.m. Korea time on Wednesday. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News, Saemangeum.
South Korea aims to become one of the top 4 content giants in the world by 2027. Now, after placing itself on top 4 dramas and pop music, the next ambition is the Webtoon industry. Shin Se-byuk reports.
The K-content industry has emerged as a major export powerhouse in South Korea, with Korean dramas and movies finding great success abroad. The country is now seeking to become one of the world's top 4 content giants by 2027. As part of these efforts, the government is now shifting its focus to the potential of Webtoons. Data from the Korea Creative Content Agency shows the value of K-content exports reached over $13.3 billion in 2022. Cartoons accounted for only 0.8% of that amount. However, the cartoon sector saw remarkable growth with a 30% on-year increase, making it one of the top 3 fastest growing segments in the content industry. An expert says what makes Webtoons particularly significant is their use as source material for various screen adaptations.
In the past, novels and comics served as the foundation for a variety of cultural content. Nowadays, webtoons and web novels, which captivate the younger generation, have taken on the role. And now, these are being exported worldwide.
To foster the webtoon industry further, the Seoul metropolitan government has launched educational initiatives to nurture webtoon creators and producers.
The core strength of K-content lies in the creativity of its creators. Nurturing that creativity requires providing them with the right talents and a platform to unleash their creative potential.
Through these courses, students have the opportunity to develop their competitiveness as webtoon creators.
I received valuable feedback and advice from many mentors, which helped me objectively assess my skills.
The classes taught me how to direct webtoons, understand illustrations better, and create trendier comics.
South Korea's well-established web environment also allows it to create more engaging content than other countries.
South Korea's highly digitalized environment further facilitates collaboration between creators.
However, he also expressed concerns about potential diplomatic issues that may arise when exporting webtoons or K-content, as some content could touch on sensitive topics. To that end, the expert said the government has to take on a role beyond just providing financial support, acting as a mediator to address these issues. 신세벽, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in Niger, where hundreds of Europeans are being evacuated following a coup. Now, France has sent 3 planes to an airport in the capital, Niamey, and is offering to help evacuate other European nationals. Germany has encouraged its citizens to take up the offer, and Italy is also organizing an evacuation flight. Now, the evacuations come amid an increasing anti-French sentiment, with coup supporters having gathered around the French embassy for days. The coup leaders have also accused France of plotting a military intervention to reinstate ousted Niger President Mohamed Bazoum. Meanwhile, military juntas in Burkina Faso and Mali have pledged support for the coup leaders. They say that any forcible attempt to reinstate Bazoum would be viewed as a declaration of war. Now, moving over to Paris, where armed robbers made off with jewelry valued up to $15 million. The robbers raided Swiss luxury watch brand store Piaget on Tuesday local time in an upscale area of the city. According to French media, the suspects, 2 men and a woman, are still at large. They allegedly pulled a gun on staff inside the store, forcing them to hand over jewelry from locked display cases and a safe before leaving. They said that the raid comes a year after armed robbers hit a Chanel store, a watch and jewelry store in the area, while nearby Bulgari and Xiaomi stores have also been robbed in the past. Now, in Myanmar, deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi has received a partial pardon from the military junta that will cut 6 years off her 33-year prison sentence. According to local reports, on Tuesday, the Nobel laureate was pardoned in 5 of the 19 cases that the military leadership had brought against her. It comes 1 week after the 78-year-old was moved from prison to house arrest. The former leader has been detained since February 2021, following a coup that began after she won a second term in office by a large margin. The pardon was part of an amnesty given to over 7,000 prisoners to mark Buddhist Lent. It also included a partial pardon for former President Win Myint. And finally, NASA on Tuesday said that it has found a heartbeat signal from the Voyager 2 probe. Now, direct communication with the spacecraft was lost last month after a wrong command caused Voyager 2 to point its antenna 2 degrees away from Earth. This led to messages from both sides missing each other. But by finding the probe's carrier signal, NASA was able to confirm that Voyager 2 is still broadcasting. It's hoped that a scheduled reset of the probe's systems in mid-October will allow communication to be re-established. Launched in 1977, the probe is designed to study the edge of our solar system. It's currently around 20 billion kilometers away from Earth.
Good morning. The oppressive heat wave continues to engulf much of Korea and shows no signs of slowing down. It's also the peak of summer vacation season, with major expressways packed with vacationers trying to escape from the sizzling heat. And we're looking at a chance of passing rain in inland areas during the day. Expect to see 5 to 60 millimeters of sudden rain. And when it starts to rain, it could pour down, so those near the water need to take the rain into account. The capital area will be under burning sunshine with strong UV rays, and feels like temperatures to hover around 35 degrees Celsius in most regions. Now, Saemangeum in Puan County, where the 25th World Scout Jamboree is taking place, is forecast to have a high of 35 degrees Celsius, about 95 degrees Fahrenheit, with a chance of heavy passing rain in the mid-afternoon. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Korea time. Stay safe wherever you are.